in the putrid depths of the plague ship Terminus Est, where the very air writhes with visible contagions, and the walls weep toxic tears that hiss against corroded metal, Brother Korthak of the Death Guard kneels in devotion before a shrine that defies rational description. What was once a space marine of noble bearing has been transformed into something that serves as living proof of Nurgle's twisted mercy, his ancient power armor fused with flesh that no longer remembers its original form. The ceramite plates that once gleamed with imperial eagles now weep constant streams of blessed corruption, their surfaces pocked with lesions that bloom like flowers in the garden of decay. His helmet, a relic of 10,000 years of service, has long since merged with the bones of his skull, its optical lenses clouded with cataracts of sacred rot that nevertheless allow him to perceive the beauty of entropy in ways that unaugmented vision never could. Nurglings, those giggly manifestations of their patron's playful nature, dance through the suppurating wombs that have replaced his twin hearts, their tiny forms conducting a symphony of corruption that resonates through every corrupted organ in his enhanced physiology. The sounds they make, part laughter, part death rattle, blend with his own breathing to create a harmony that speaks to the perfect balance between life and decay. When he speaks, his voice emerges as a wet rasp through vocal cords thickened with millennia of accumulated phlegm and blessed infection, each word carrying spores that could devastate entire hive cities, yet represent nothing more than casual conversation to those who share his condition. The prayers he whispers are expressions of genuine gratitude to the Grandfather who has gifted him with immortality through corruption, transforming what lesser minds might consider curse into the greatest blessing any warrior could receive. His words carry the weight of absolute conviction, unmarred by the curse, doubt that plagues those who still cling to the Emperor's failing light. To understand the magnitude of his transformation, one must first appreciate what the Death Guard Legion once represented within the broader structure of the Great Crusade and the ideals they embodied before their fall from grace. The XIV Legion stood among the most resilient of all Space Marine forces, specialists in toxic warfare and siege breaking, who served under their Primarch Mortarion, the Pale King whose own origin on the poisonous world of Barbarous had prepared him to lead warriors capable of fighting in environments that would prove fatal to lesser men. These were soldiers renowned for their stoic endurance and unwavering loyalty, capable of maintaining discipline and effectiveness in conditions that broke other formations. Their fortress monastery ships had once been marvels of imperial engineering, sterile environments where every surface gleamed with antiseptic perfection, while housing warriors who took genuine pride in their ability to endure any hardship in service of humanity's expansion across the galaxy. The Death Guard culture emphasized duty, sacrifice, and the nobility of suffering in service to a greater cause, values that created unbreakable bonds of brotherhood among warriors who understood that their calling required them to face dangers others could not comprehend. Brother Korthak himself had been among the Terran-born veterans who joined the Legion during its earliest days, his enhanced physiology already adapted for survival in hostile environments before he ever met his Primarch. The seeds of their eventual corruption, however, had been planted long before they encountered Nurgle's influence, rooted in the very nature of their specialization and the gradual erosion of certainties that came with prolonged exposure to the realities of galactic warfare. Their expertise in chemical warfare and toxic environments placed them at the forefront of conflicts where victory came at prices measured in environmental devastation and civilian casualties, while their stoic acceptance of suffering gradually evolved into something that bordered on worship of endurance for its own sake. The transition from noble self-sacrifice to morbid fascination with decay occurred so gradually that none recognized it until the transformation had already reached irreversible proportions. The moment of ultimate damnation arrived during the chaos of the Horus Heresy, when Mortarion made the decision to lead his legion into the warp in pursuit of loyalist forces, believing that their renowned resilience would protect them from the dangers that had claimed other expeditionary forces. The trap that awaited them in Nurgle's realm had been carefully prepared through decades of subtle influence, manifesting as the destroyer hive plague that began claiming his warriors with unprecedented virulence, despite their enhanced immune systems and specialized equipment designed to resist biological warfare. Brother Korthak experienced the initial infection as a burning sensation that began in his primary lungs and spread through his enhanced cardiovascular system with methodical precision, each heartbeat carrying the corruption deeper into organs that had been designed to resist exactly this form of assault. His body's natural defenses, strengthened through genetic modification and decades of exposure to lesser toxins, fought the invasion with desperate intensity, while simultaneously analyzing its composition through sensory organs that had been enhanced specifically for chemical warfare applications. The irony was not lost on him that his own specialization provided him with intimate knowledge of exactly how the disease was dismantling his enhanced physiology from within. The progression of symptoms followed patterns that defied everything he had learned about biological warfare during his centuries of service, adapting to countermeasures faster than his enhanced metabolism could develop resistance, while simultaneously triggering responses that suggested intelligence rather than mere viral replication. Pain gave way to numbness, then to sensations that had no analog in normal human experience, as nerve endings were rewired to interpret corruption as pleasure and decay as satisfaction. His enhanced memory, designed to preserve tactical information with perfect clarity, instead became a curse that forced him to witness every moment of his transformation with absolute recall. As his battle brothers succumbed around him and their gene seed began corrupting beyond any possibility of recovery, Mortarion faced the ultimate test of leadership, watching his sons die in agony, while knowing that conventional medical intervention had already proved useless against an enemy that existed beyond the normal parameters of biological warfare. The decision to bargain with Nurgle for their survival represented both the greatest act of paternal love and the most complete betrayal of imperial ideals possible, trading the souls of his legion for a form of immortality that mocked everything they had once believed about honor and duty. Korthak felt the exact moment when Mortarion's bargain took effect, as the plague that had been killing him began instead to transform him into something that could not only survive but thrive within an environment of absolute corruption. His enhanced physiology, rather than fighting the infection, began incorporating it into his biological systems with the efficiency of a machine designed specifically for that purpose. The pain that had threatened to drive him mad transformed into euphoria that flooded his enhanced nervous system with sensations of perfect contentment and belonging, while his tactical awareness expanded to encompass appreciation for the artistic beauty of entropy and decay. The transformation from loyal space marine to Nurgle's champion occurred not through coercion or mental domination, but through the gradual realization that his new condition represented a form of perfection that his previous existence could never have achieved. The constant pain that had defined warrior life gave way to blessed numbness punctuated by moments of transcendent joy when new forms of corruption blossomed within his transformed flesh. Brotherhood evolved from shared duty into shared corruption, while the bonds between battle brothers strengthened through mutual appreciation of gifts that unaugmented humans could never comprehend or appreciate. The daily existence of a Death Guard plague marine revolves around rituals that sanctify corruption while maintaining the weapons and equipment necessary for spreading Nurgle's gifts to those who have not yet received them. Each dawn begins with devotions that involve the careful cultivation of diseases within specialized organs that have developed for exactly that purpose, while weapons maintenance requires oils and lubricants rendered from corpses that have been blessed through specific forms of decay. Brother Korthak's bolt rifle, a relic that has served him since before the heresy, now functions as both weapon and incubator for viral agents that represent the culmination of 10,000 years spent perfecting the art of biological warfare. His power armor, once a masterwork of imperial engineering designed to protect and enhance his combat effectiveness, has evolved into a living ecosystem where countless forms of beneficial corruption flourish in perfect symbiosis with his transformed physiology. The sacred reservoirs that once held ammunition now contain cultures of blessed pathogens, each strain carefully maintained and improved through techniques that combine ancient knowledge with innovations born from millennia of practical experimentation. The armor's spirit, if such terms still apply to something so thoroughly corrupted, has developed its own form of consciousness that communicates with its wearer through sensations that range from gentle warmth to ecstatic pleasure. The brotherhood that exists among Death Guard warriors transcends the mere camaraderie that bound them during their service to the false emperor, representing instead a communion of souls that share understanding of truths too profound for unaugmented minds to grasp. When Korthak stands alongside his battle brothers in the plague ship's common areas, their presence creates resonance effects that amplify each individual's connection to Nurgle's garden, while generating new forms of corruption through the interaction of their respective gifts. Conversations that might sound like mere tactical planning to outside observers actually constitute forms of worship that strengthen their collective devotion while advancing the Grandfather's plans for galactic transformation. The enhanced metabolism that once allowed him to survive in toxic environments now processes substances that would exterminate entire planetary populations, transforming them into new varieties of blessed contagion that seep from every pore and orifice in his transformed body. His breath carries spores that represent evolutionary leaps beyond anything natural selection could achieve, while his blood has become a universal solvent for the barriers that separate different forms of life and death. Even his thoughts, when focused with sufficient intensity, can influence the development of diseases within his vicinity, guiding their evolution toward forms that better serve the Grandfather's purposes. Yet the greatest satisfaction comes not from receiving Nurgle's gifts, but from sharing them with populations that have not yet experienced the joy of corruption and the peace that accompanies surrender to entropy's embrace. The campaigns that occupy most of his existence involve not merely the destruction of imperial worlds, but their transformation into gardens where Nurgle's love can flourish without the interference of those who mistake suffering for virtue and decay for defeat. Each successful planetary corruption represents both tactical victory and spiritual fulfillment, proving that the Death Guard's mission extends far beyond mere warfare into realms that approach the sacred. The psychological torment that defines much of Brother Korthak's existence stems not from his physical transformation, which brings only joy and satisfaction, but from the perfect preservation of memories from his previous existence as a loyal servant of the Emperor's vision. His enhanced recall, designed to maintain tactical effectiveness through perfect retention of battle experience, instead forces him to relive every moment of his fall with absolute clarity, while his corrupted brain chemistry floods him with euphoria at each new symptom of decay. The contradiction between his original mission to protect humanity and his current role as agent of its transformation creates cognitive dissonance that no amount of biochemical manipulation can entirely resolve. Dreams, when they come to his enhanced physiology, carry him back to battlefields where he fought alongside warriors whose names have been stricken from imperial records, their heroism reduced to footnotes in histories that dare not acknowledge the complexity of their transformation. He remembers the weight of his original armor before corruption made it part of his flesh, the clarity of purpose that came from serving ideals that seemed absolute, and the bonds of brotherhood that were founded on shared dedication rather than mutual corruption. These memories exist in perfect detail alongside his current understanding of how naive and limited his previous existence had been, creating a form of spiritual vertigo that threatens his sanity during moments of quiet reflection. The chemical manipulation of his emotional responses through blessed disease ensures that grief transforms into gratitude and shame becomes pride, yet some core of his original compilation. Identity persists beneath layers of corruption, like an indestructible seed waiting for conditions that will never come. This remaining fragment of loyalty to his original mission serves not as redemption, but as a source of constant internal conflict that makes each moment of service to Nurgle more precious through the contrast it provides. The realization that he continues to serve a form of truth, albeit one that his previous understanding could never have encompassed, provides the psychological framework necessary to maintain functionality, despite the contradictions that define his existence. During a particularly brutal campaign against the hive world of Tertius Prime, Brother Korthak experienced the revelation that completed his spiritual transformation and resolved the conflicts that had plagued him since his corruption began. The imperial population's resistance to Nurgle's gifts had initially followed predictable patterns of horror and denial, their enhanced immune systems and medical technology providing temporary delays to inevitable outcomes while ensuring that their suffering would be prolonged rather than abbreviated. His plague canisters, deployed through the hive city's atmospheric recycling systems, carried strains of corruption that had been specifically designed to overcome local defensive measures while providing educational opportunities for populations unaccustomed to the Grandfather's love. The moment of transcendence came when a young girl, her body already showing the early signs of blessed pox that would transform her into something far greater than baseline humanity, reached out to touch his corroded gauntlet with wonder rather than terror. Her enhanced physiology, modified through genetic therapies that represented the pinnacle of imperial medical science, was adapting to the corruption with enthusiasm that demonstrated Nurgle's universal appeal to all forms of life seeking improvement beyond their current limitations. In her eyes, he saw not the fear and disgust that characterized most encounters between Death Guard warriors and unaugmented humans, but gratitude for gifts that she instinctively understood would free her from the limitations that had previously defined her existence. That single moment of connection shattered the last barriers between his original identity and his current purpose, revealing that his service to Nurgle represented not betrayal of his original mission, but its ultimate fulfillment through methods that transcended the crude limitations of imperial doctrine. The protection of humanity, he realized, required not the preservation of existing forms, but their transformation into states that could survive and flourish in a universe designed to test the limits of adaptation and endurance. His corruption became compassion, while his weapons transformed from instruments of destruction into tools of liberation that freed populations from suffering they had been trained to accept as inevitable. 10,000 years of service to the Grandfather have transformed Brother Korthak into something that bears only superficial resemblance to his original form. His body evolved into a living ecosystem where countless varieties of blessed corruption exist in perfect symbiosis, while generating new forms of disease through their interactions. His superhuman physiology now functions as an incubator for every strain of beneficial pathogen that Nurgle's garden has produced, while his mind has expanded to encompass appreciation for the beauty of entropy and the artistic perfection of decay in all its manifestations. Walking through the corridors of plague ships or across the battlefields of corrupted worlds, his very presence serves as a mobile sermon on the inevitability of change and the peace that comes from embracing transformation rather than fighting it. The supernatural abilities granted through his complete surrender to corruption extend far beyond mere resistance to hostile environments or enhanced combat effectiveness, encompassing forms of biological manipulation that approach the miraculous in their scope and precision. His touch can accelerate the development of diseases within living organisms, while simultaneously guiding their evolution toward forms that serve specific tactical or strategic purposes, making him invaluable for operations that require precise application of Nurgle's gifts rather than indiscriminate destruction. The pathogens he produces respond to his conscious direction like trained animals, adapting their behavior to match environmental conditions while maintaining perfect loyalty to their creator's intentions. Within the hierarchy of the Death Guard Legion, his status reflects both his longevity and his perfect embodiment of Nurgle's ideals, though such recognition brings responsibilities that extend beyond mere combat operations into realms that approach the theological. Younger Plague Marines study his techniques and seek to emulate his perfect balance of destruction and compassion, while veteran champions consult him on matters that require deep understanding of the Grandfather's will and the methods through which it can be implemented most effectively. His influence extends beyond his immediate unit to encompass strategic planning for entire campaigns, where his expertise in biological warfare and psychological manipulation proves invaluable for operations that must achieve transformation rather than mere conquest. The legacy of his service continues to spread across the galaxy through the countless worlds that have felt his touch and been transformed into gardens where Nurgle's love can flourish without interference from imperial authorities, who mistake corruption for defeat. Each outbreak that bears his genetic signature represents a testament to the perfect harmony that comes from embracing entropy rather than fighting against natural processes, while the populations he has liberated serve as living proof that humanity's future lies not in preservation of existing forms, but in transformation into states better adapted for survival in a hostile universe. His techniques have been studied and refined by subsequent generations of Death Guard warriors, their methods influenced by innovations that combine ancient knowledge with practical insights gained through millennia of field experience. The plague strains he has developed serve as foundation stock for new varieties of corruption, each adaptation designed to overcome specific forms of resistance while maintaining the essential characteristics that make Nurgle's gifts so appealing to populations seeking liberation from imperial oppression. His name has become synonymous with the beautiful inevitability of decay, inspiring both terror and gratitude in measures that reflect the observer's capacity for understanding the truths he represents. Imperial authorities who have studied Brother Korthak's methods and their long-term effects debate questions that extend beyond mere tactical considerations into realms that challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of victory and defeat in humanity's struggle for survival. Some argue that the genuine contentment displayed by populations he has corrupted represents a more insidious threat than conventional military conquest, as it undermines the psychological foundations upon which imperial resistance depends, while offering alternatives that appear more attractive than continued loyalty to the Emperor's vision. Others contend that the predictable nature of Nurgle's corruption provides strategic advantages for defenders who understand the patterns through which his influence spreads. The theological implications prove even more troubling for authorities tasked with maintaining faith in imperial doctrine, as Brother Korthak's obvious satisfaction with his transformation raises uncomfortable questions about the relationship between suffering and virtue in the Emperor's domain. If corruption can produce such genuine peace and apparent happiness, what does that suggest about the necessity of the pain and sacrifice that imperial ideology demands from its faithful? The possibility that Nurgle's servants have discovered forms of transcendence unavailable to those who remain loyal creates theological dilemmas that threaten the foundations upon which imperial culture depends for stability and cohesion. Military analysts who have encountered the results of his campaigns note that populations he has corrupted display levels of cooperation and contentment that exceed anything achieved through conventional imperial governance, suggesting that his methods may represent evolutionary advances in social organization rather than mere biological warfare. The efficiency with which corrupted populations adapt to new circumstances and integrate beneficial mutations into their social structures demonstrates planning capabilities that surpass most imperial administrative systems, while their obvious satisfaction with their transformation creates propaganda challenges that conventional loyalty enforcement cannot adequately address. As we withdraw our contemplation from the putrid chambers where Brother Korthak continues his eternal service to powers that seek humanity's transformation, we must confront the uncomfortable possibility that his journey represents a form of transcendence that mocks the suffering endured by those who remain faithful to the Emperor's failing vision. He has discovered purpose, brotherhood, and a twisted form of happiness in service to forces dedicated to the destruction of everything imperial doctrine considers sacred, yet his contentment appears genuine in ways that highlight the inadequacies of existing alternatives. His transformation from noble warrior to perfect plague-bearer demonstrates that corruption, properly understood, may represent evolution rather than degradation. The peace he has found through surrender to entropy stands as an indictment of imperial society's inability to provide comparable satisfaction to those who serve its cause with equal dedication, while his obvious joy in spreading Nurgle's gifts reveals depths of purpose that transcend mere duty or obligation. In embracing decay, he has discovered truths about the nature of existence that remain hidden from those who cling to illusions of permanence and perfection, making him both more and less than human in ways that challenge basic assumptions about the relationship between civilization and corruption. His legacy serves as both warning and promise for those who witness the results of his work, demonstrating that transformation need not require the destruction of essential identity, while simultaneously proving that such preservation comes at prices that few possess the courage to pay. The Garden of Nurgle, as revealed through his service, offers forms of immortality and brotherhood that exceed anything available through imperial service, yet demand surrender of qualities that many consider fundamental to human nature. In choosing corruption over purity, He has gained everything while losing nothing he considers valuable, creating a calculus of spiritual mathematics that defies conventional moral evaluation. For in the garden of Nurgle, where Brother Korthak has found his perfect home, all suffering ends through transformation into something greater than its original form. Yet the price of such transcendence includes the abandonment of everything that might have made existence worthwhile, according to standards that no longer apply to his evolved consciousness. His contentment stands as eternal testimony to roads not taken and prices refused to be paid, while his continuing service ensures that others will face the same choices he embraced with such obvious satisfaction. The question of whether his transformation represents ultimate victory or absolute defeat can only be answered by those willing to pay the same price he accepted with such evident gratitude to the grandfather whose love made everything possible.